Susan, as an abandonment specialist, why do you want to talk about racism?
Well, right now, the country of America is going through a therapeutic crisis, and it's with the goal of overcoming racism in our country. So, and racism has to do with those sort of primitive assumptions, that these notions that we have left over from slavery of inferiority and separateness, and these notions have become taboo. So we've become ashamed that these notions of inferiority even exist. So there's a lot of shame. No matter what ethnicity we have, the whole country, we have a lot of shame. And shame is the distinguishing feature. It's the defining feature of abandonment trauma. And when you think about, going through the legacy of slavery, that was an enormous trauma. But even living in a black-white divide the way we do, it's the shame of all the trauma of living in that divide. The feelings of inferiority, or the notions of inferiority, we don't choose to have a society based on those notions, but somehow they have seeped into our society. And so along with them is the shame for having those notions floating around. We most of us in America want to overcome that. And shame, whether it's from any abandonment scenario, from a relationship, or this very generalized abandonment scenario of what's going on in our country, shame is something that affects us from within. So we're talking not about how to resolve racism, that's too tall an order, but just, we're looking at the shame. And by looking at it, maybe helping to lift it just a little bit to be able to see through it.
Okay, so where does this shame come from?
Well, the originating source of the shame is America's legacy of slavery, the 300 years of slavery, and then post-slavery, Jim Crow and all the things that happened after it. And the acknowledgement that slavery really created wholesale abandonment. When you're looking at slavery and the shame that rises out of it, it isn't just telling someone, I don't love you, I want to leave you. You know how much that hurts, we all do. It's telling someone, I don't love you, you're beneath me, you're my slave, you have no worth of your own. It's the most abandoning, shaming thing that you can do to another person. And any of the notions that came from that legacy of inferiority and separateness, echo that shame.
Okay. And why is being called racist shaming?
I think it's because it has become so taboo. Most of us, people who look like me, are anti-racist, and we really don't enjoy knowing that those notions are lurking about even within us. So we make them very suppressed. If we even ever catch ourselves having a thought like that, we chalk that up to some quirk, and we suppress it the best we can. We know that those notions of inferiority and separateness and all of that, we know that they're harmful and hurtful and destructive, so we don't want them. Those of us who are on the white side of the divide, if we're called racist, if we're anti-racist and we're called racist, it hurts so much. It feels so painful. It feels as if we're not being seen. Don't you know the love that's in my heart? It just hurts terribly. It's one of the most shaming things that we can call each other is racist. And one of the ways to avoid being deemed racist, none of us want to be seen as racist, is pointing our fingers at other people. And in our politics, we have the blue states and the red states. And, you see the blue states kind of accusing the red states of being racist. And then the people from the red states are accusing the blue states of being hypocritical. And the idea of people accusing each other of being racist is just so shaming. It creates such intense feelings. No matter blue or red, it feels so unfair and so unjust. And another aspect of it is that we'd hate to think that whatever those feelings of inferiority that are part of that post-slavery syndrome that we suffer from, those feelings, that if they're transparent in some way, that maybe we have them, but other people can see them and we can't, is just horrendous. So it's just very shaming to be called racist.
Mhm. And what do we do to get rid of the shame of racism?
Well, as an abandonment specialist, I can say that shame is not something we get rid of like pus from a boil. It's something we have to reckon with, and we have to get humble with it. So no matter how anti-racist we are, we have to acknowledge the fact that we've all been socialized with a lot of these negative messages. We've all been socialized with the basic history of our country, which includes slavery, and a very bad, uniquely bad type of slavery. And we've all been contaminated with that. And to get humble with that means that we're open to looking at these thoughts and these feelings within ourselves so that we can really be honest and sort of put them in an honest dialogue with other people. The originating trauma of the kind of slavery we practiced in our country was so debilitating, so overwhelming, that it had an impact on all of our brains, even many generations later. And these notions of, inferiority, Black inferiority versus white superiority, those notions, and that we're separate, two separate races. Those notions are part of the collective unconscious of our country, collective unconscious. It's probably the most American thing that we've got. And we've been socialized also to deny those feelings, to refute them, to hold them as unacceptable, to deem them inappropriate and untrue. We've been socialized to dispute those feelings. We've been socialized to hold them as taboo. So what we all need to do to get sort of humble with this whole issue is to be in recovery from racism.